So we're going to do a welcome, everyone. Welcome to June 2015's Human Rights Commission General Body Meeting. It's our agenda is in front of us, and it's a proposed agenda, so we will need to go ahead and accept that agenda and move forward. Our minutes are being located, and so we may not actually have our minutes for today, and we may have to push that approval of minutes until the next meeting, which will be interesting, but we can do that. Another, just from looking at our agenda, one of the changes we do have is that Dante will not be offering his OEHR report as he is off on his honeymoon. So, well wishes to he and Christina. And so we're actually going to be able to make up some time, which is great because we have a visitor and we're visitors. Is that one at least? Okay. Yeah. And they are, what's the international delegate? From Holland?
From Utrecht, the Netherlands, yes.
Utrecht, the Netherlands. Okay, great. So the great thing is we're going to be able to fit you guys into kind of our cattywampus agenda that's happening right now based on the changes.
Just so you're aware, we have to leave in about a half hour.
Yeah, you guys will be moved right to the front of everything. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So as everyone is looking at this agenda right now, outside of us not being able to approve the minutes because we don't have them. Okay. Yeah, so we might be able to do it toward the end of the meeting or something like that. We're going to, in place of the OEHR report, go ahead and invite our international visitors to come have a conversation with us for item 4. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to change or any updates or any other questions about the agenda so far?
So are you going to switch 3 and 4 then? So that we'll do the general retreat?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We'll switch those around. 4 will become our visitors. And minutes will possibly be approved towards the end or worst case scenario next meeting. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, agenda, anything like that? Okay. Now, do we don't want to motion to approve? Well, we're gonna go forward with this agenda because we don't have full quorum right now. So, and I know we have a commissioner who's finishing up a meeting in the other room who will be joining us here momentarily. So, in the essence of engaging our group here, why don't you guys come on up and we have some space up here in the what we like to call front.
Nice.
And we'll get started.
So I guess I'll do a little intro and then Alex can kind of take it away. My name is Greg Braisman, and I am on a vacation day today. I work for the city though. I work for the Portland Bureau of Transportation. I do a lot of active transportation and livable streets and traffic safety work, and I'm really excited to be here. I have a pretty deep passion for equity and work closely with a lot of members of our organization that are involved deeply with equity work, like Caroline Meredith and Janice McDonald.
Inclusion person.
I don't know if they've been hired yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it's working on it, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm eager for it. It's I guess I'm not here to talk about transportation and equity, but sometimes I may have to because of a deep passion for the subject. But because of my work in active transportation, one of my projects is the neighborhood greenway system. So it's got like the bike symbol and 2 arrows on top on the residential streets. And equity actually was a driving force behind that concept because it's a model that we can actually deliver relatively quickly through town and provide a basic level of service for folks and address problems. So when I was doing research about that, one of the things I did is I took another vacation and spent 20 hours a day for 12 days straight in Europe learning about residential traffic safety and livability. And while I was there, I stopped in Utrecht, the Netherlands, because it feels a lot like Portland. And actually spent my longest period there. And while I was there, we created a knowledge sharing agreement on transportation. So we were sharing information back and forth about like safe routes to school and light rail transportation and bikes and traffic safety and all that kind of stuff. That was in 2009, 2010. The relationship started to grow into what's really becoming like a sister city. So we have lots of different,
Can you say the name again?
Utrecht.
Utrecht, okay.
Yes, Utrcht, yes, Utrecht.
Okay.
And Utrecht's like the fourth largest city in the Netherlands. It's the center of the country. It's like the hub of the freeway system. It's got the largest train station in the Netherlands with 46,000 bike parking spaces at the train station. It's, yeah, that's right, third high, has more bike trips than car trips. Has some real equity challenges, especially with new arrivals, particularly from Northern Africa, and kind of how that integration is working and those kind of things. And so Hans Sockers is the director of the Department of International Relations and what they call cities marketing, but also is the head of an equity effort, human rights effort in Utrecht. And so they're here right now. We're kind of on a program to try to look for ways that we can build bridges between our communities and learn from each other. And so, my hope in meeting today with Office of Expert Human Rights and now with the Human Rights Commission is that we find ways we can share and maybe learn from each other and push on each other and build a bridge that might be supportive of everybody's work. So that's kind of why we're here, and I'll let Hans kind of take it away in terms of what's up in Utrecht and then kind of the conversation.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yes, where to start? Well, we are here with a few people that we try to find out what could be interesting topics, issues, activities, projects, or things that we could connect between our cities, and where we find inspiration on both sides. And for me, it's because in the Netherlands, human rights and the city is not very well connected. Human rights is a topic, an issue, a word, a concept that is used on the national level, and it's about foreign policies. But as Greg said, well, we're involved in international relations, so we also try to catch international development or concept and to translate it to the local level. And human rights is one of them, and in fact we're the only city in the Netherlands that try to work on human rights. Of course, all cities are doing a lot on social policies, but it's never called human rights. So for us it's an experiment and a little laboratory for how to use the word, how to let ourselves inspire by it. And well, it's one of the main things we're doing now is to work together with all kind of NGOs, volunteer groups, also businesses, bigger organizations, smaller initiatives, and we invite them to say, well, what we do together in this city is in fact a contribution to what is a global value, and it's called ratified by treaties that they call human rights. So in fact we have something in common. When you're working on domestic violence, or on poverty, or privacy, or doing projects for elderly that are not alone, or children participation, or refugees, and help them to find a way, whatever, we have something in common. And so we started 3 years ago to work on the idea of a coalition, and we started to create events, also with food, but also with culture and music, theater, but also with, we're choosing a topic every time. Last time it was about multilingual society, and the voices in society that have to be in dialogue with each other, to understand each other and how we organize these things. And we are having in 2 weeks about debt and the way debt is playing a role in the position of families and how to deal with it and how to come out of this kind of circles that is,
Did you say death or dads?
debt.
What is it?
When you have,
Depth?
that when the money is,
Oh, debt.
Oh, debt.
that, how you pronounce it?
Debt.
Debt.
D-E-T is kind of how you say it, debt.
But it
There's a
be,
B of
the
silence.
B in the word.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
so-
Moving to English, yeah, all these weird rules.
Okay, it's like in Spanish, when you have cerveza, then it's beer, but it's,
There's missing
B
letters.
is
But you guys are working on the idea of debt and what it does.
yeah, one is an example, but it's very interesting for me, very interesting to see how you work as also as a core group, as an advisory committee, thinking about these issues and have all this kind of perspective on how to translate it to what should be done in the city. That is something we now started to think about, how we could combine it in this coalition, and how we invite them to also to reflect on what's going on in the city and what should be done. Because until now it's more, we try to bring them together, to empower them, that they make use of their networks, about their communication, media, about that they inform each other about the activity they're doing. And we also try to find crossovers, that people working on children's rights start to work together with artists or with student groups and or refugees, and then create new projects cross-sectoral. And that is very inspiring. We have now seen very good projects in that it starts to people go beyond their own thing that they are engaged in. And but the structure is a little bit the puzzle we are now dealing with, because we are quite informal. We don't have a formal commission with the right to, but there is an openness to exchange. So the question is how to formalize or not to formalize. What's the next step? Or what kind of research should be done, and how is this research also? Because a lot of knowledge about what's going on is already in society, and how to bring it together and how to talk about it and how to. Another thing is that it's human rights is a law perspective, and how much law do you need, and how much inspiration, and how is the balance between. So what are the moments that you form it in a positive way and to challenge, or is it also sometimes you say, no, this is not a no-go, and we have to take the court and we have to say in a negative way, well, this is not what we don't want that is happening. So this kind of strategic puzzles is, well, it's difficult to find our way, because there are not that many other cities in Europe trying to work on human rights, and we have very small experience on how to integrate it in daily life, but also in policies.
Can I ask one quick question from the group first, and then kind of jump from there? I'd ask, when you think about the Human Rights Commission, how is it empowered, and what does it do that has changed the course of important actions in our city?
So first, and while everybody ponders that, I want to just, first of all, thank you for coming and offering your piece. I think what we actually sat down, Kenya and I did with other international visitors from the World Affairs Commission, organization, council, thank you, okay, who have a human rights commission, so to say. It's a totally different model than ours. And so the conversation we had, that's similar to kind of some of the strains of thinking that I hear you talking about around formal structure. What's the best practice? Is formal structure a good way to really push this work forward? And then in particular, law versus inspiration. And by inspiration, I'm assuming that it's also kind of, what are the societal norms? Are we okay with these things? What are we as a society open to? What do we see as right and wrong? Because that allows us to either push policy if we absolutely need something in law, or is it changing kind of society's feelings around things, which then make law and policy much easier to mandate or to push, because, you know, some people just may not do it if they're not inspired enough. Are you guys connected to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Is that something that you guys use often? It's, that for us helps us kind of like guides us down. There are 30 articles, and that is something that we, you know, adhere to, because that helps from the sister city kind of perspective. It helps to ensure that we, you know, are also all aware of what things we think are right. Because we have a million of those.
Yes, thank you. Yes, of course, this is the 1948 declaration.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we have 13 other, 14 treaties, etc. And on social rights, cultural rights, economic rights, and in the world of cities, there is a movement worldwide. Many Latin American cities are very active, and they call it a little different. Sometimes speaking about the right to the city, it's a movement of claiming back the public space. It's also very interesting. There are some very active Asian cities, as Gwangju and Seoul in Korea, but also in Taiwan or in Indonesia. In Europe, there are some cities like Vienna, Graz, Nuremberg, Barcelona, Utrecht, but there are not so many. And the experience how to deal with and how to use human rights as inspiration on the local level is in a very early stage of development. So I think we need each other, because on the national level there are no real sparring partners, at least in the Netherlands. So we are very eager to connect with other cities that have more experience and have been thinking about this, and not only that the municipality has to do something, but for all civic society that is using the concept to empower themselves against this local governments and against their governments, because this is to protect us against states and systems and very big companies. And well, therefore I think that only a local movement is very good, and that we have to build this locally, but also to connect these movements together, that we are connected and can learn from each other.
I think the conversations we've been having so far, like that have just been happening from an happenstance, are great, but to build upon a coalition that's really saying what's occurring, what's happening. I mean, we were sitting down with, was it the Indonesian group, and this was a team of folks who, the work that we do, was it 300 or so people who were paid to do this type of work, which I think can somewhat relate to maybe as we think of like, you know, DHS services or something like that. Those may have been where those paid positions come from, but there's an entire group, you know, well, 300 people in that particular place that it's their job to do this, which is very different than us. We sit here as a group of 15 volunteers, and I don't know if anyone wants to answer his questions around how we're empowered, or what are some of the actions that we.
I think, tell us your name again?
Greg.
Greg,
Yeah.
okay. I think your question about how we're empowered, I think for me anyway, the fact that we're a commission of the city, that we're a body that's actually sanctioned by the city, if you look at, I think that really helps empower what we do, because it's the city saying to us, this is an area, at least an area of thought that is important to us as a municipality. Because when you look at the set of advisory bodies that the city has, you know, this is the same as every other bureau's advisory body at a different level. So we're part of our mission is to actually advise city council. So we don't advise even just a bureau. It's kind of like the planning commission, the planning and sustainability commission advises on land use planning and sustainability. So we've got that same kind of empowerment on issues around human rights. And I think at the municipal level, and with the UN Declaration, for me anyway, I see it less as a legal process. You know, think when you have it at the international level, it's seen as a legal process, international law around human rights. When you get to this level, it becomes very much more aspirational. You know, that human rights are rights that each individual, including all the citizens of this municipality, are endowed with. And so how do we as a municipality uphold those rights? I think there are some on-the-ground examples that the municipality is involved in that we need to hold them to task around, this week, around raids on those without housing. The city police bureau is enforcing sweeps on folks who are on the streets living without housing. Is there a way for us to bring a human rights lens to that activity, a municipal activity? Also, I think there are other civic examples like that. That's the example to me that comes to the top of mind right now, the activities of the police bureau, which is a municipal agency that has a lens that can use human rights. The legal aspects to it are around civil rights. Those are the legal. That's the legal framework, I think, that we recognize more in the U.S. look for a legal framework at this time.
Do others want to offer any pieces?
Let me ask another kind of question based on what I was hearing from Hans when we were talking about you guys and your advisory role. The sense I got, you correct me if I'm wrong, the sense I got was like, well, it's nice to have advisors, but how do you know that anyone's going to listen?
Right.
And what happens if they don't listen to the advice? How does that structure and that movement of policy and power play out? Like that was kind of what I read from his response on that advisory system. And my read as someone that's totally outside in, is that, and just for working for an agency and knowing we have a budget advisory committee and just hearing the water cooler talk about what happens in those meetings, that I know they are influencing the direction of our agency, right? And I also know that the people in the room there are there because they are community leaders that understand what we're trying to accomplish and are able to have clout within the community, so we better listen, or we're going to wind up getting pushed back in other directions. But I'd love to hear from your angle on that, just so that Hans can kind of understand why you take the time as a volunteer to be here. It's got to be, you feel like a useful thing to do, but just kind of, how does it happen?
I mean, I think there's two parts to that question, and for me, there's, I think that we are an agency of the city, but we're also considered an autonomous body. That situation to me has both positive and negative effects. The fact that we are advisory means we don't truly have authority to enforce anything, we advise, which, means on one hand, we don't really have any power, but on the other hand, we do also have the option to, for instance, be vocal about disagreeing with what the city is doing on a particular issue, because we're autonomous. So, I mean, I don't know, that our situation to me sort of plays both ways, and I think it's tough. I don't know that it's like good, bad, or.
Well, I think we like to play into it with, after the fact you mentioned specifically community leaders. Everyone who sits here represents a myriad of other hats, communities, and that's one of the things that we're actually extremely proud of. There are 15 members here, and if you were to just look at the diversity of who sits on this commission, we are extremely just kind of well represented, whether it's youth, everything. And so we're proud of that, because that should allow then for 15 unique perspectives to be brought. Many intersections are here, but because we're community leaders that also kind of engage a whole other sector of folks, there is something. Not only can we do a full open letter that's just out that says, hey, city, you guys are extremely unawesome with this. That can happen, and that never looks good. But at the same time, it's not a mandate. It's not full-on resolution or anything. So there are limitations, but this is what we're here to do. And in fact, we did a day long retreat before, really asking ourselves how can we strategically align to move initiatives without being mired in this advisory place or this place where we maybe feel like we have less agency to do the work. You know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I think they both discovered something, discovered really great points. Audrey especially about the fact that we are advisory, so we don't have real power to tell the city, oh, you need to change this and it'll be changed. For example, we asked them not to sign up with the Joint Terrorism Task Force again, and they did anyway. We asked them to something about the DOJ, and they didn't listen to us on that either. The Department of Justice, and they didn't listen to us on that specifically either. But certain things like bringing community members together and having convening sessions are really powerful, because if you're not going to do anything but listen to us, then let's bring you with the community together and have you listen to the community. So we've done things like roundtable forums, which the first roundtable was on a bunch of different topics, like law enforcement, housing. Some people even brought up the fact that we need to discuss media, different things like that. And we've also done candidates forums in the past. So looking at who's going to be candidate, asking questions, human rights related questions, of course. And like Shabri said, we're a part of different communities. So like when you mentioned Right to the City, I go to meetings for Right to the City here in Portland. And so we all are active, we're trying, but of course, human rights and humanity are not put above money in certain situations, and so it's hard.
So I know we really appreciate the time on your agenda, so I don't want to, I have one more direct kind of question, which is while Hans is here from the Netherlands, it's nice to be able to be face-to-face, and I'm eager to hear any ideas or offers or suggestions or requests about how we can build bridges on this front. And I know this is like kind of out of the blue for you guys, so if
Well,
there's.
it is and it isn't, only because
Okay.
we just had a visit with the World Affairs Group, and I think one of the things that, as I sat there with that team, and I said was, well, it should be great just to have one of the, you know, we have coalitions and groups for a myriad of other things.
Yes.
It would be great to have this, because again, I think even you and what you explained that you guys have thus far, us and what we're experiencing now, and what we understood from Indonesia when they were here, three totally different ways that this work is occurring. But what is true and clear outside of the three spaces that we're looking at is that this work is important. It has been important since way back when. And what are the best practices to doing this? And you know, everybody doesn't need to do everything the same, but yes. And so I would love to personally, as the chair here, say let's have a conversation about what that looks like. I don't know what that action looks like, but we have a card, and you know how to reach us. Can you able to get to us? So let's, even if it's an email chain, to start kind of, what does this look like, or you know, Google group. I have no clue, but
Yeah.
let's start
Skype.
a conversation for sure. Yeah, maybe we can have Skype conversations. In fact, one of the things that I know that we will truly ask, you know, outside of being advisory, I think one of the things that we know that we can do is ensure that we are helping the city to discover, you know, human rights issues and things that are happening, to advocate for good things, to help, what is it, visibility, to make sure that there's visibility along new issues that are coming up, or new, you know, systematic things that need to change, and then empowering and educating the community. And so while we may just be advisory to the city, I do feel like we all understand that our purview is much larger than just saying, hey, Charlie or Amanda, or, you know,
Yes.
this is what you need to do. We as a group can help to convene, I think, even community members, and so
Cool.
that I feel is probably another thing that we.
Well, then, and
Shabri.
Shabri.
Yes, it's great.
Yes, the other thing I do, another hat I wear, is I'm liaison between the city and City Repair, which is the nonprofit that does all the big street paintings.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that it could be a really great platform for cross-cultural sharing and expression and celebration. And so I would love to have a conversation about thinking about intersection repair project, type project. I've also been learning about collaborative mural making projects. So I'd love to be able to, I write the permits.
Yes.
So
we know the right guy.
And oh my gosh, it would make my heart sing if we found a
Bringing
way to
people
work
together.
together.
Conversation.
Oh, yeah, so, please, let's talk about that too.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Can I just
for-
follow up on one thing that Greg said? Greg, I think you're right on the way you described your bureau's budget advisory committee and that sort of political pressure that it puts on. It doesn't have an enforcement role, but same for us. We recognize that this is a political system, that we have elected leaders, and that the pressure you can put on makes a difference. And the way I like to think about it is to think about the city council and the mayor knows who we are and knows what we believe. And I guess I'd hate to think of the way their conversations might go if they knew we weren't here, right? If they knew that there weren't people who might run into them in the hallway or run into them at events and say, hey, what about this, what about that? So it's an accountability like that that I think helps, that you know that there is a group of people that are paying attention and you know, have a role about advocacy.
Yes.
We don't have a role about enforcement. So I think you're right on with that.
Cool.
It's important for you to call yourself Human Rights Commission and not, for example, intercultural or pluralism group, or you can think about many words, but has it a special meaning?
I think it does because it brings us to the one thing that we can all absolutely connect to. At the end of the day, right? No matter which group we're connected to or whichever, the fact that we're working on behalf of human rights and not just.
It's also because it is a global
connection to that.
standard, moral standard.
At a very base level, a very basic level, sort of, you know, that ultimate level that we're all connected by.
Regardless of anything else that can separate us.
Well, I so appreciate you guys making time for us, and I look forward to seeing where this
Yeah.
goes. Let's bring it
Yeah.
someplace,
Sure.
yes. So,
Yeah. Here we go.
get a plane ticket.
You and I both. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. See you later.
So, folks, as far as the just time that we have, Greg, I'm gonna give you.
Oh, yes, thank you.
We have less than 15 minutes, thank you so much. We have 15 minutes, and one of the things that I wanted to do before 5, which, do we have anyone signed up for public comment? Levon, okay.
I was going to,
Did you guys want to speak during public comment?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure, and you do? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we meet our 5 o'clock time period. One of the things that I wanted to do before we got down to 5 was have a general retreat reflection. And I wanted to give more time to that than less. Do we feel, pardon me? Do we feel that we have, this 13 minutes, would that be good to have just a general conversation? A reflection time, we can bring that up later towards the end if we need to.
I would say if we need to, we can bring it back in after public comment.
Yeah.
We gotta respect the fact that we
Right.
put 5 o'clock on here for public comment.
Yeah.
See where we are after that.
Yeah, and maybe if, I mean, we're at 10, 4 or 5, but if we have public comment ready, we could, you know, was it, where'd he go? Oh, he's okay.
So let's just have popcorn for 10 minutes because there are issues within the rest of the agenda that have to do with the retreat. So folks, general, let's, what were your reflections on?
Retreat?
Yeah, I
It
forgot
was a
already.
day long, all that Saturday.
I have thoughts.
Okay.
Should I wait to get over there?
Yeah, we don't offer them.
Shout from where you are.
Okay, so.
Mr. Intersectionality.
Yeah. And I think personally, I expected unfinished business. And I still feel like, you know, that feeling of having unfinished business. We never wrapped up the conversation on intersectionality or what top 3 issues we wanted. We also didn't come up or brainstorm ideas for action, ideas for what we want to do. With best expressed with Dave. And I feel like those were the parts that I was really hoping to finish, but we didn't. And so I want to maybe finish it soon. And that's my regret.
Awesome. Others?
I thought for the folks who put that together, I think it was great. I think it was a great day. I think the facilitation was fantastic. I think we got a lot out of it. There's always more we can do. I think we have to keep, like you've got some of them on the agenda, and we're gonna follow up on those. But I think it was a good day.
It's good to hear. And we knew we were like super, I think, really trying to push, yes, over, but we were like, we're gonna get this done, and we're gonna be awesome. And I think we
That
were.
would be the
but
one
it-
piece of feedback. I think it was, you know, just like everything else, there are some things we could cut out. I think it was ambitious, but I think overall, very worthwhile.
I thought it was one of the best, if not the best, retreat we've had, that HRC's had actually. In terms of actually drilling down, not wasting time. Actually,
Do you feel like that was because of the facilitation?
facilitation and agenda.
Okay. Well, that was a whole plan, because I think myself in particular, just, I wanted to be able to have the conversation with everyone else.
Right.
And I think one of the practices that Kenya helped remind us of a little bit back was, we can engage those type of services to actually go forth and do good work, and so that we don't need to be afraid of that.
Yeah.
And we can even build it into, how we plan to do this work and how we look at our budget. And, not that it needs to be an exorbitant amount, but I think Resolution Northwest did a fabulous job, that's what they do. And, you know, if we continue to really mold it in, then maybe we can get these ambitious goals, like, and knock them out of the park.
I would agree that the facilitation, that was actually the first meeting I've ever been in that had a third-party facilitator like that, and I was like, this is so necessary in so many ways. I think it was really effective, and I was sort of amazed at their ability to, you know, keep us moving. And my general feeling about the meeting, of course, I wish we could have accomplished more, and of course, I was frustrated that we couldn't make some decisions that I really hoped we could make. But at the same time, I feel like that because we have so many new people right now, I mean, this is very much, some of you have been here a really long time, and there's a whole variety of new people that I felt like it was, for me personally, very sort of impactful to get everybody together and just sort of talk very honestly about, you know, what we want to do, so.
Well, can I just commend everyone? I know a few people at the end, and Teresa, sorry, something with work came up for you, but everyone actually planning on being there, that, because we knew that everyone was gonna be there, it helped to ensure that we were gonna put, and all the people who came to the planning meeting, that we knew that we had to make it worth your while, and, you know, we were ambitious because we were like, we're gonna have everybody there, we have to make it good. So if we can continue to just have that fervor, I can promise you, as chair while I'm here, and for all the folks, I know we all want to do good stuff, and so we're going to continue to try to bring that same level of thought and process, and like, let's make sure that this time spent is well worth our time. And hopefully we get some good stuff happening, and we continue to build relationships.
I hope that this was the best spent time and investment towards the relationship of the HRC. I feel like you guys grew in ways that maybe you didn't know you needed to, around knowing each other and understanding each other better. One of the things that really resonated for me was this symptom of, wow, we really had some real conversations and we got real work done. And it made me wonder, what happens once a month though? What is that thing that gets in the way once a month of us being able to do this kind of work? Because we have a good chunk of time to do this. And so I would invite the commission to consider that question and that symptom and come up with some answers, because it's not that you guys magically did that work. That's the work that you're always capable of. That's the work that you all, we got the right people at the table. So that's the work that I think we all should expect every month.
I think that, I like what Kenny just said, and I think that some of what I would say to that is, now that we've had that larger conversation, the time that we spend together monthly will probably follow suit, at least in my mind, because now we'll be clear about what our commitments are. We're focusing on these X number of core areas, and these are the core expressions and the best expressions of that. So the way I work is, it's always great to have that sort of strategic orientation and that big picture stuff figured out, and then everything goes from there. So I'm hoping that we'll have that kind of here, we meet monthly. Also, just, I've been to so many meetings where there's a third-party facilitator, often I'm that person. And I really appreciated what they did throughout. I was very impressed, so props to them. And I'm really happy with how much we did accomplish. I know there were a lot of like partially unresolved decision points, but we did get to at least some resolution. And some folks, when they convene, don't. So I just was really impressed with how far we did get, given what we had thought we could, or were trying to kind of bring in there. I think we kind of knew that that wasn't possible. And then also having a core planning team for the retreat was really helpful, because in past time I don't remember there being as much all hands on deck at the front end for that, so that I think that made for a better retreat as well.
We have a few more minutes before 5, and then again, there's other places where we can talk about stuff, but just in general, like general reflection on.
I thought it was great. I never been to anything like that, so, but I did feel like something was unfinished at the end of the day. But looking at things globally, I don't think, we'll probably end global poverty and racism in our lifetimes. So I think that feeling will never go away. I don't think it's a bad thing to feel like there's more work to be done. My one reflection though is that I think that's why it's important to set really short-term goals, and I was really happy that it was brought up time and time again in the next year, was that actually and tangible things, so that when people like them come up and say, hey, so what do you guys do? We'll go bam, 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 take that. So I think that
Take that.
we set some pretty good goals, and I think we set a really good tone for what we actually want to accomplish as a body. So I was happy about that.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to tag on really quickly to what Daniel said, and I think, I know I made this very clear at the retreat, but that bit of actually, setting a time frame and wanting to accomplish something, I think is extremely important in this kind of work, because we're talking about huge issues that we can't fix, and we can't fix everything, and there's so much to be done that it gets to feel like overwhelming, and what can we even accomplish? And I think small steps are what makes actual progress, and I feel like we can do really good work if we keep that framework in mind.
Yeah, I disagree that the facilitators were a lot of help. It kind of seemed like pure mediation, where if we were going to off topic, then they would bring us back to what we really needed to do. But also, I think the main thing that really made the retreat work was communication, and just the fact that we were all together, we were all communicating with each other instead of meeting once a month and talking for the first time in a month. So I think a good follow-up to that, besides having the meetings be more efficient, like Ashley said, but to have offline, like off-meeting communication within Google groups and such, to really have that bond to really get things done.
Before we
And hold on, can I just respond to that? Is that allowed? Because one of
You have brought that up a million times.
If you're not making decisions, yeah.
It's our human right.
Well, and the concern is that casual conversation can slide into decision making before we know it, and then we've broken public meeting law, so that becomes, we've erred on the side of just staying away from it more than seeing how far we can go.
So maybe we can just, I think because we understand as a commission that our tone and our goal is in fact to get work done, that if we are utilizing or accessing these types of technology or whatever, that we just be watchdogs ourselves over what public meeting law is, the reason why it's there, and we just try to really check ourselves and recognize that we can check each other in a warm way. Just so that if we, if that is the best method of us doing work, how do we make sure that we're doing it at the utmost place of integrity? Because public meeting law was set for a reason, and it is a good thing. It just sometimes gets a little hairy when you're just trying to get something done quick. So thank you guys for that. And again, we have other time on the agenda to really kind of hash out a few other things that we said we would at least talk about tonight. But one of the things I can offer, just as chair, and I know that Audrey feels this way as we sat down and talked about this, Please feel free to hold me accountable to a lot of what we talked about we want to do. So if you see that I'm not helping us kind of continue on with that tone, if I'm not helping bring that 360, that question, if you guys hear me asking that 365, how does this actually work for us? Bring that up to me, and I think, Audrey, did I say Ashley?
Almost.
Okay, darn, to Audrey and everybody, actually, if you want to, all of ourselves. But really, I mean, I think if we're holding ourselves accountable to that, that's how we'll get it done. And if there's anything that I do in this time that I'm sitting here, hopefully we just continue to do that. So thank you all so much. We are, I think, right on schedule, look at us, for public comment. And so we'll do that, and then again, we'll have other places to kind of delve a little bit deeper. Can you tell us who's the first public comment? You're closest to the...
Levon,
Levon.
the only bullet.
Is there any, I think you said you wanted to.
I was gonna say, I would think Charles is gonna, because that's just the way things go. Okay, I know last month we had Philip Hilaire come and share with you about our ADA celebration. Well, we now have a little flyer, and I didn't print up enough for everybody, just because I thought some people probably wouldn't bring them home, and I didn't want to put them in the recycle bin. But we've got 10 of them. If you need more, I can get them more. And it gives the different events. We have 3 different events going on that we're involved with at the Portland Commission on Disability. The first one is we're having a reception because there's a disability history exhibit going to be at City Hall for 2 weeks. A lot of people don't know disability history, which we kind of learned here a couple of months ago with the ADA little quiz and everything. And so this is an opportunity because it's really rare to see disability history presented out there. So I hope that you guys are gonna either come to the reception or just drop by City Hall and walk through and see. It goes all the way from ancient times until now, so it's not just about what's happened since the ADA has started, because disability has been around since infanticide in ancient times until now. And then we'll have the reception on the 29th with like the mayor and all the important people, and there's apparently a very old story from the Indian tradition that I'm going to see if we can get brought in for that. Then we're working with PSU to do something up in the park blocks on, I don't know, sometime in July. You can read this and it will tell you, July 23rd. It's hard for me to read it. And then Sunday, July 26th is the big celebration. We're doing it at ERCO, which I'm really excited for, because I live out in East Portland, and I think that folks from East Portland don't come to downtown that often. So we're trying to get a whole new crowd coming in and participating, and it's all based on storytelling. So it's going to be very personal and to touch your heart rather than to jab at you about this is what it is and this is what our rights are, which I think, the human rights are very important involved in the ADA, but it's going to be really a heartfelt experience and event.
What time is the 26th of it? Or is it on, it's on here?
It's on
Okay.
here. It's in the afternoon. I think it's like 1 to 5 or something like that. And lunch will be provided. And there will be, because ERCO is a little bit hard to get to from public transit, we will actually have shuttles running from the Gateway Transit Center to ERCO.
Thank you, Levon. Are you excited to do this? Yeah.
And GA will be done.
Thank goodness.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I know, as you're well aware, our esteemed city councilors meet every morning before you did. And today was relatively light agenda. They've concocted a new blue ribbon panel derived utilities advisory board to buffer them against rate raises for the water department and sewage, stuff like that. They didn't talk about a place you may have heard about, Alberta Street, where 10,000 people were last Thursday, where shots were fired and hit 3 people. Although the mayor did show up that night, there wasn't really talk about the situation there. Some of you may not know that on Thursday night, when this juvenile shooter injured 3 people, one of the victims was being given first aid by some people connected with Don't Shoot. So Glenn Waco and Marcus Cooper were arrested while they were advocating for their rights and the rights of this injured victim. Marcus spent the night in jail. There were about 70 people in the courtroom Friday morning, or Friday afternoon, when he did get released on recognizance. But they're informed, Glenn and Marcus are informed activists. I think an aspect of this, 2 things to look into as far as the Human Rights Commission is concerned here is the city's policy towards the Alberta neighborhood, which is kind of hard to pin down the Alberta neighborhood now because you have traditional residents and then you have gentrified influx there. But is the city really being disrespectful of the human decency and integrity of the people in the Alberta area, especially the historic residents in that area, by leaving things kind of up in the air with the official, unofficial status of last Thursday's? And of course, I think more importantly, from multiple aspects of the equity lens, what went wrong that Thursday. We have a person of color who's also an almost adult child. What's going on in Portland that a 16-year-old whose father, according to the news reports, is from across the river in Washington, why is he feeling he needs a gun? Why is he feeling he needs to pull the trigger at somebody that's eyeing him? Why aren't we having a louder discussion about that kind of dysfunction and the root causes of that here in the city of Portland? I think that that's an important conversation, and there's a possible explanation which may have been put forth by the mayor's office that almost explains everything. Gangs! I don't think anybody here believes that that's simple. I've never really heard the use, even though we had a biker attack in Texas, I've never felt that the connotation of the word gangs in Portland ever included white people. A city full of 80–90% white people, and we think none of them are in gangs, and the gangs are an explanation. So I hope that with all the other work you're doing, and maybe while you were at your retreat, that idea of applying a human rights and equity lens to youth of color, and I think it also broadens more to us. I think when we talk about the rare times people talk about the wealth and inequality gap, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I've far from memorized, I believe it talks about work and work with dignity. And as election season comes up, we hear cooked numbers like, oh, unemployment is down to 5.whatever%. How many people feel they have good careers, job security? I think that is another aspect for, and I think it's maybe, I don't know, I haven't looked at all your resumes or CVs to know where we are educationally, and if we're distanced from the average community of Portland in that way. But I think that is something that comes up. The AFL-CIO and some groups have been kind of thinking about that in regards to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In fact, the president could come and visit, our billionaire Nike executives, but not really give us any real facts about how ordinary people from ordinary families can feel that they can get careers with insurance and stability to afford rent and stuff like that. So I think that an issue that's going to be before this commission, along with entrenched racism and discrimination against the poor and houseless, is a general question of economic justice and who has access to economic security and mobility. Thanks, y'all.
Everybody?
one thing I noticed, I got some cards on the table, so if you don't have any cards on you, there's a whole box of them down there. And thanks for bringing them in, because it's been coming up for many years. And on the back here, I was reading about eliminating discrimination, bigotry, strengthen intergroup relationships, and foster greater understanding and inclusion and justice. I want to talk just a small bit about getting the agenda on the website, so there is some inclusion with the community. It wasn't up there again this month. And just the website in general is my point of speaking right now, is that when I look for human rights, Portland Human Rights Commission, I pretty much just get the website to your main equity division. Then I click on the human rights part, and it's really outdated. I think Jeff has commandeered the one little button where you click for agenda. He puts the CPRC stuff there. That used to be for your group. And now the front page of the human rights thing has got Jeff's little CPRC, which is an important thing, but that used to be your little click to get your agenda. And there's not much about anything you're really doing up there. I mean, you are doing stuff, and I'm recording it, and there's no links to anything in anywhere of your website to any of my videos of your meetings, which if you don't want to share your meetings, that's fine, but I think you're doing good stuff that more people could see than just my friends. And so like none of your Facebook pages or Twitter or any of those reference your meetings. It's a big disassociation, so I don't feel inclusion. And working with strengthening and understanding and working together, I feel somewhat a gap of not really, of the community trying to see what you guys are doing. And you can't see the minutes, you can't see the various things that you've done. So I just want to encourage you to maybe use some of your budget to help can you do some of the website stuff. Maybe you could hire an intern or somebody that would update your Twitter pages and put stuff that you're involved in. You also have a calendar up there that's blank. And the calendar is color-coded for different events and things that are going on. So if another group with Race Talks was doing something, whoever controls the calendar or could access it, you could put Race Talks, you could put different, the ADA things that you all talk about. So that the community, when we're trying to figure out what you guys are doing or how we can engage, I think there's been some work done by Amy about if a citizen wanted to say something or there's some paperwork you would fill out. I think she started that process, but how do you find that if you're a citizen? You know, so just encouragement to maybe give your website an upgrade. And it's all really more about the equity department and all the things that equity and your bigger mothership is doing than what your group is doing. And I think you're all getting slighted and short-sheeted. So, and I'm doing what I can. I do this all as a volunteer and just trying to bridge the gap and show everybody who can't make it to this meeting what you guys are doing. And you can't find any of that, any reference to any of your meetings through your website. And that, when I looked up the word bigotry, it just seemed like, I don't know if that fits in there, but it seems like my voice or what I'm showing, it's like, I don't know, there's no, why isn't it being shared, by the group? Why doesn't it being acknowledged that your meetings are all documented? The very first meeting you've ever had. And you can see some of the same conversations you're having today in your meetings that people have gone through before. It's a real learning experience. It's for the history of what you've gone through. I told those people that left, look back at some of the old meetings. If you want to know how this group has struggled through the years and got to where they are, it's all right there. And so I just want a little more interaction.
Also, I'd like to just note that you have been at meetings longer than I have. You've been on this commission. And so the advice is well worth it.
Same thing for me. You've definitely been here longer than I have because
Yeah.
I've been here less than, but I just want to publicly let you know that we do appreciate you being here. And I think we've noted before what it means to have this year, and I think we'll continue to look at ways to ensure that it's connected to folks who need and want.
Yeah, I see like on the Facebook page, I don't use Facebook anymore. They wanted my real name, Mike, and I was going by Joe, and so I just have gone away from, but even when you look back at Facebook, you guys talk about things that, what you guys have done in the community or things that are happening, and there'll be an Oregonian or the scanner or something, but there's really all this stuff and there's nothing. I even do small little outtakes of the director talking or something. I mean, somebody could put a little, here's the director talking about what's important, and it just sort of.
I think, I definitely appreciate what you're saying, and I think that
Think about it.
there's agreement here that we want that to happen, and, my personal, you know, I kind of feel like that is, based on what we were talking about earlier, that's sort of one of the challenges of us being, you know, not staff within the office that does that work. You know, it's, we have to find ways to
More
help that
outreach
happen.
for that,
Yeah.
yeah, reaching the public. And through the web is a common way people are all doing it, and social media. And maybe with the budget, you can hire somebody to help out on that. I don't know if that's possible.
Our budget isn't that big, I'll just.
Well, it used to be. It used to be.
But,
Yeah, and it slowly slips away and you don't use all the money, so there would be an idea, my idea is get somebody to help with her, with the, getting your information disseminated.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
does anybody really think your name is Joe, by the way?
Oh, they call me Joe all the time, so.
I really appreciate everything you said. There's one thing you brought up that, you know, when we had the transition period from the old Office of Human Relations to the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and there was a transition period on staffing, I personally was advocating for when there was a switchover from the website and the creation of the website of OHR. And I was strongly advocating that all our notes be put on there. And for that exact reason that you said, and I was specifically told that by a person in particular that we're not gonna go further than a year or 2 years or so. No one's interested in that. And so, I mean, I really think Kenya can weigh in on that potentially, or in terms of advocate for that office, if that's important, because I thought there's a lot of historical information there that was lost or is on whatever the previous incarnation site is. It's still there, and that other one, that old one, doesn't even exist. The city's paying for it, but I mean, you know, I would take what Mike said and take that back to the office, because that was, we were specifically told no on that case.
Well, having things just get lost through over time, and you look back at some of the stuff that people have struggled for and fought for, and if it just gets lost and documentation's gone, you know, then, I don't know. I'd like to preserve it more, that's why I'm doing what I do, trying to archive things.
I appreciate your effort.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Well, we are also, we were just on track. As far as our agenda. So one of the things that, if you guys remember from the retreat, that I was supposed to bring, and I didn't, which is fine, because we didn't really have any time for it, was what I was calling our board form. And I say board form because I've utilized this in other spaces and places for other entities that I'm a part of or have led, and essentially, you know, pass it around. It's literally a sheet of paper that simply allows us collectively to share what we feel is important to us personally, professionally, what we hope to do with said mission of the HRC, and also be a place where annually we can look at, if you flip to the back, just essentially events, and if there's one in particular, and this could be, we could expand this list, and this can, you know, be so much further. But if there's one thing in particular that you know as a collective kind of HRC effort, how do you want to engage with that? And again, we can continue to build this, and this might be something we just do on a Google form in the future so that this isn't typed in or something like that. But I wanted to make sure we had this. Again, it just helps, in the past it's helped us to say, oh, you know, I had a board member before who was really interested in making sure that his LinkedIn had just a recommendation for the good work he was doing. That was his like professional goal of the time he spent. And I was like, oh, we can obviously do that. Like, that was super easy, right? And but that was his thing, and that was super important to him. along with doing the good work that that board was doing. So it literally is a place for us to just acknowledge and say, hey, this is something I look forward to doing. It's a place for us all to be able to receive that, and then from the leadership perspective, we can help to ask ourselves, are we helping to keep and uphold those things for everyone? And we can change it as often as we want to. Does anyone have any questions about it? Oh, there's name, phone number, and email, because those things change, my email in particular. And we'd like to make sure that this is the email, the phone number that you want to be engaged on with regards to HRC stuff. I think we have that for most people, but it's always good to have it most recently and updated with what you have there.
And I printed these out today, but I think the easier thing is email the document every once you can actually just type in it. So you don't have to handwrite if you don't want to, and I will do that after the meeting.
But if you do decide you want to handwrite it and you just
That
want
is
to
totally
scan
fine.
it and send it, that's also fine.
So just clarifying, in the past, there was some conversation about doing basically what's called like asset mapping, and figuring out what kind of like skill set and connections people bring. Is that part of this, or is that
Yes.
something else?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mention that. And that was that was the goal, it had we done it at the retreat, was to not only say this, but for you to be able to state, I love public speaking, that's what I do, and I really am connected to this aspect of the work that we're doing. And then for us to, yes, literally be able to map out and say, we do have folks who are in particular either interested in these events, this work, and these are the ways that they'd like to engage and, express that interest or those.
Where do you
goals.
want us to put that in this, or is that otherwise communicated?
So it's kind of general here. What I had to do was kind of pull out from it, again, all the other boards and ways that I've used it. And so just in general, your expectations, goals, and needs for us, for sure. But the pledge details, and that's probably one more so that if you were going to do this in an electronic format, that you could throw things in there that I know that I have a passion and the skill and talent for this, and this is how I'd like to see that kind of, engaged.
I recommend adding, if possible, like a separate or a standalone thing that speaks directly to skill set and connection sort of thing.
Perfect. Okay.
And I really appreciate you doing this.
So you guys are gonna resend this?
Yeah.
We can add the
Add
skill
that,
set,
and then we'll send
connections. And connections, you mean just in general, like other, you're right, this is. another one.
Organizational associations or community connections or something else.
Right, or things that you were close to, right.
And then just one clarifying question about the expectations piece, because for me, when I serve, I'm not actually, maybe it could just be how I'm thinking, but I'm not hoping to gain something, I'm hoping to serve and accomplish things. So I might kind of see what I hope to accomplish and the expectations as one and the same, and I can just explain that, but I'm not looking to get something out of it. It's
Right.
literally, which
Yeah.
I don't think you were trying to say, I'm just, my brain's
Right.
having a hard time working with the.
Well, as I was switching this over from the last board, it was really interesting, because I thought with the work that we do here at Human Rights and the way that we all come to this place and this table, we don't usually come with, this is what I'm hoping to get out of it. However, what we do know is that things do and can happen by sitting here, and if there is something, again, like the LinkedIn thing that was the simplest thing, but it was like this hard thing that he didn't really know how to share that, and he shared it through this board form. Like if there's something that's even as simple as that,
Okay.
or just the liaison work that you're going to be the liaison to a city bureau. That's going to help build relationships that you think might, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be like you're trying to, it's not like you're trying to extract this, but just if there is in fact a realization, a tangible thing that you as a professional, you as a citizen of Portland, maybe expectations is too strong of a word there. And I actually think expectations is also more wrapped around kind of the conversation we had earlier around the work that we hope to see and get done here, how we're holding ourselves and others accountable for this. But we can continue to build off of this. And if you have
Okay.
ideas as you're looking at it,
Okay.
please, because again, this is just meant for us, collectively, to do good work. And
Yeah, I would say if anyone has input on
yes.
different language they want to see or different content, just send in an email and then we can add a document or something.
For sure, yeah.
After the editing process, you guys are giving people a window of time to do that in. And then will you guys be giving them a window of time to complete their information in it? And then do you want them to send it to me and then
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, if we really, one of the things that we talked about at the retreat was coming back in July with a few more things in mind. And so maybe if we can plan on this form coming back, you know, done in July. So we'll take maybe the next week to collect any other ideas, thoughts that you have. We'll update it, we'll get you that form, and then Kenya will just make sure that you're CC'd in the whole process so that we can, kind of like you have here, check off that it's been received.
Can I only take the finished one, because it'll get me convoluted? The one piece of that.
Yes, we can make sure that we get you
Suggestions.
the finished.
I just want them, y'all to send me the finished forms.
Yes.
Not the finished suggested form, but your responses to the.
Filled out forms.
We'll leave you out of it.
Yes, so, yeah, I don't know, any other questions about this? This is just meant to be something I was supposed to do Saturday, that I didn't do, totally forgot it.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
It's fresh. It's awesome.
Thank you. And if there's, you know, one of the things when I was looking at it as far as events, I wasn't even sure, like I put specific committee event, really, because I was like, there could be something that committee does. So feel free to fill that in, you know, I just wanted there to be some open space for things that I am totally unconnected to, or maybe I just wasn't aware of before. So, okay, look at us, we are just moving along.
Hey, can I add something, just a
Yes.
quick thing on that? So, last year, Human Rights Week, Alan and I went to see a play called Five Lesbians and a Quiche. And it was quiche.
A few months ago.
Or it was some.
Oh, it couldn't have been 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It was a few months ago.
No, it's been out.
I think it was fall.
It was just before
Yeah.
the tax season.
Yeah.
It was
nice
great.
day, though.
So Kenya had left, we had passed out information, and there was all this information here, this, and the report, and like all this stuff, and like, I was cleaning my office recently and realized this is our leftover stuff, so I was wondering if anyone that tends to be in the community, as opposed to, you know, because Kenya had it, but if anyone else would be interested in having it, that could have use of it.
Yeah, I could bring it to PSU.
Okay.
And do you want to bring it to your university?
Yeah, I can bring some Lincoln.
It's collateral, it's essentially.
I think it'd be good to bring to, I think it's good stuff to bring to events.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I would leave it out to just general.
Yeah,
I would
just-
try to take the specific events. that
Right,
were-
specific event stuff, yeah.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
just wonder if there's anyone who would need it more than sitting
I
in
wonder
my
if, going to that welcome home event tomorrow.
Yeah,
Would be a good
for something like
idea.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
There you go, look. we
I'll
got-
take it.
It'd
I'll
be-
take round
It'd be
one.
helpful, Kenya, if you had like a envelope that didn't have my name on it.
Why? We just put HRC.
I'll put it in a new envelope, so you're not.
Yeah, stuff.
Okay. So we're actually gonna be a little bit over 2 minutes, look at us, 2 minutes ahead. Let's roll into just kind of executive committee and staff report. Kenya, do you wanna offer anything since Dante is not here?
In terms of staff report, I don't really have a whole lot, except that we're going to be going to the council in July, on July 8th with our equity goals that we're creating in the office, so you guys are welcome to come. I need to find out what the issue is with getting you guys commissioned. Usually she just calls me and says, hey, they can come. I haven't gotten that call yet, but I haven't been in the office, so I've been out working other work and then gotten here and had a meeting and just came in here, so I don't know what's on the phone right now, but.
But I did ask.
Yeah, yeah, we wanted to know, but so I'm telling you guys that maybe she called today, I don't know, I just haven't been in the office to, I picked up the call and my desk called over and so. But I'll check into it and make sure I know what's going on with that. I don't think there's a whole lot else. In the city, the UPA task force, they're at a point now where they're starting to work out the disability components to that. And so that might be something of interest for the HRC because there is a human rights component attached to the freedom to move about.
They don't have the capacity to take.
People can't do that,
Right.
exactly. So it might be interesting to have you guys there and somebody to speak on that behalf.
When is that happening?
I can give
At
you,
council meeting?
the task force is happening, all the time. And the other thing is the COCO. Is anybody here better information?
Yeah, we know that Kathleen Sadat is the new COCO.
Is the
New
new COCO.
local COCO.
Pardon?
A local
She's a
COCO.
local COCO, right?
She's a local
Yeah,
COCO.
local. Be specific, be specific.
So, and they're being housed in our office. So
Really?
Kathleen will be in our office from time to time, but her assistant, their
Where did she get
admin-
here? Sorry, I'm just really excited that it's her. and-
She doesn't actually have a physical space yet, so it's coming, I think maybe July, she might spend a couple hours here per week. And she'll have an assistant who'll be managing all of the, COCOs or, the COAS admin stuff. We're not able to utilize them, but they will be sitting in our office, so they're not of our office, but they're in our office.
Even though we can't use them, we'll be able to talk.
I think HRC has the ability to talk to them because you guys are interested, are stakeholders, so you guys can come and talk to them, but we can't get their admin assistants to do any work
Yeah.
for the HRC.
So I think one of the only things, Sonia and Emmanuel are not here right now, but one of the things we talked about post the retreat was making sure that we continue to build a space for that information flow. And I think even in the like the concept of an executive meeting like we have, or that an executive team is supposed to have, we can maybe post bi-monthly or something like that, things with Kathleen and or the admin while they're here. Really to just continue to make sure that if we have particular questions and issues, in the same way that DOJ came here and just kind of leaned on us to offer our guidance around like the word is gone. The alternate word, right? And so anyways, as we continue to have conversations and things with that and as it relates to DOJ, maybe there's just a place in a space that we can ask when she gets here, if we can sit down, and by we, I'm thinking Emmanuel, somebody's the alternate, myself, if there's someone else, we can just use that space to really engage in that DOJ work and, go forth and prosper.
I think that seems really appropriate. And I think that, as a body, you guys might want to be, I don't know, maybe looking at again the connections with the electeds, because there's gonna be lots of things happening with coming out of the legislative session, and so you want to start getting on top of things that you want to run past our government relations office coming this summer, so that we can get on the top of the curve and not come up with them just as they're ready to go down to Salem to start doing their work down there.
Because next year, I think it's the short year, and each one, each person, each legislator, they have like, 2 bills, I mean, it's fewer bills they have, and so, and I think so if we have our stuff together in the summer, and by the time fall rolls around, when they have to submit their early ones,
You can be in that moment.
We should do that legislative 101 at some point, maybe bring that Office of Government Relations group here also in addition to having here international.
I heard that
Do
one.
you want to set that up? I was just gonna say.
Yeah, okay, so with our newly formed areas of focus, I would need to know, and others would need to know, like what potential legislative issues you're thinking will be working for those core, like 3 top areas of focus. Does that make sense to everyone? There's no longer like a policy ad hoc committee. I don't think we talked about potentially having someone serve on the exec committee and be advisory to as needed. So I can continue to serve that function in that way, but given that we just gone through this like planning process, partially through, I should say, we're not all the way done, but we have some new areas of focus, and so the policy work would stem from those priority areas, I would think, unless there's disagreement, but
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that there's that aspect of it, and then I think the other that may be a smaller portion is with legislative pieces that are already coming up. If there's something that we want to at least voice or advocate for with the other things, I think it would be good to just be aware of what that looks like. And I don't know what that is, right? But if we know that things are coming up and that we have the capacity to sit down and or.
That's what I mean. I think we need a 101. I think we need to understand how we can interface, given that we're a city body, on legislative issues, not what are the specific legislative issues.
Well, there'll be that too, but so a 101, is that something that you did before, or who did
We
it?
talked about doing it, we haven't.
So before doing something here, I recommend that we have some conversation with the government relations office, because there may be some different ideas about the extent of our authority or advocacy per this body, so just.
And I think that's what we want to hear from them directly.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
But
Yes.
do we want to have a position first, because it is a little bit of a back and forth in understanding our roles and how we're quasi-autonomous in their role, and we are actually a city body.
We already know, to be clear, we've had a discussion with them that they want us to go through them for everything.
And I heard that when I went with Kyle a year and a half ago.
Yeah, they will consistently say that, but we have learned that that's not necessarily how it has to be. But they will definitely say it is the best route to go. We can go outside that route, because we have actually proposed a bill before, a couple of years ago, and that Senator Shields had for a while. But I'm just saying that they will say that. But I think it's important for us to be aware of the fact that working with Office of Government Relations is the best route to go, but that is not our only option. But they will present it as if it is.
Right. Absolutely.
So is there,
So just for clarification, this means that we can try to draft policy or bring people together to do that, but we just are not asked to do that? Or am I?
it sounds like we're encouraged to engage the GR team.
Okay.
Definitely we're encouraged to, and encouraged to only go through them.
So yeah, I'd equate it to the kind of training we did through the city attorney's office about public meetings laws and what we are bound by as a city body. So that's, I think, where that comes in for through government relations. It's because of who we are. So if we want to operate as private citizens, we're free to do that. But same, we're bound by public meetings laws because we're a body of recommending body of city council. I think we might be bound by the same types of commitments based on the fact that we have government relations on. So that's what I'm interested in. And that's why I think they've told us in the past, everything has to go through that office.
So Kimmy, is that a meeting in the same way that we had the meeting with, is it Linda or whoever the person is? Can we have that 101 at a possible July or August? That sounds like it might be super late meeting.
So I think honestly, another important thing to remember is that this office only has 6 people. Maybe it only has 5 at this point.
The GR office?
The government relations office. And so their schedules are all over the place. And narrowing one of them down to come and do this might take a little bit of time. So I would say August, but I'm also worried that August is late.
So what if we have, what if you said it's late? Yeah, so what if we offer maybe those two as some days, but maybe there's just other ad hoc days that we can, folks who are interested can come in and just like we did with planning for the retreat, maybe we have, some folks who are really interested in it come and be available.
And I'll talk to the government relations and see what their bandwidth is for being able to do a government 101 or a legislation 101. And then present those to you guys and maybe work from there if I can be afraid.
Just by show of hands, who's interested in the legislative work?
And I heard way back when that supposedly each member of the Human Rights Commission had either a council person or a legislative person kind of assigned to them that they watched over or followed.
The liaison work, which actually is a list, or on the list, so where do I have it? Oh, way down at the bottom. Yeah, typically it has been the chair of said group, like the HTTF, if there was a commissioner who was working on that, then that chair or someone deemed by that committee would then be that person, so it's not necessarily that there are 15 individual like liaisonships that are occurring, but that is the goal, and in fact, the point of having it here was for us to discuss how we can continue to talk about that work and how we organize that so that it's a reality. And I think this is a perfect example of why that needs to happen. Go ahead, Ruby.
Yeah, actually, I think this will take place in a couple of different steps. So I agree that folks, whoever is able to come from that office can come and provide us sort of like a one-on-one, 101. I would recommend, though, that we also have some ideas about how we want to do this work and not just ask another office to tell us how they would like to see us do it. Do you understand the difference? And so, and there, when you have a bunch of attorneys together, there are a lot of different ways of interpreting the same thing. And so I've heard 3 different city attorneys provide similar but different interpretations on public meeting law and public records law, for example. So we're going to get some different ideas about the extent to which we can reach if we don't go through the city's legislative priorities, so to speak. So I just, for those who are really interested, I would love to just have a meeting of the minds and talk about where we would like to go with that, and that's great.
And to add on to what Ashley said, I was gonna say on last week for something around this legislative thing with different people around the state, and so it was not a legislative day. It was very different than that. But there was a panel about how the bill became a law, and some of the state representatives there and other stakeholders around the driver's license bill or the tuition equity bill. And so Reina Lopez of our Oregon was there, and a lot of people may know her because she's worked with CAUSA. And I thought it'd be informative too, possibly if an outside person were also able to inform on the legislative piece, because what they will share will also be very, very different than what, like, as Ashley was saying. Or this is not instead of, this would be in addition to the city.
And I think
That's something to consider.
And I think that would be like a lot more around the community organizing piece. And so if we're a body of people, representing kind of too many communities, and I think that would be a really important perspective. And I personally would think that the HRC it'd be more meaningful if we supported and somehow engaged other coalitions that are already going to be pushing other bills that are around human rights and equity, because that's definitely happening.
So I think there's 2 things. One of the things that we talked about was building or making a policy chair so that there was a person who was collectively thinking about these things, saying, hey, how do we have these one-on-ones? How do we bring in other groups to help us, do this? And then maybe convening around the dual idea of how do we support other groups that are doing this work, or is there already legislation that's happening, and how do we advocate for that? And then also, is there something that our individual committees are building or something? So how do we feel just in general about having a policy chair and or a place that someone can be thinking about that? Maybe not necessarily a committee, and you can let me know how you feel about that as well. Not necessarily with you, but just in general, for a person to do that, what do we think about that? Because I think it's different than what we've done in the past. It's been a committee that was like, right? Yeah.
So, I guess I feel good about it. I feel like we do need to have it, but with our 3 focus areas, does this mean that the only things that we focus on policy-wise are those 3 focuses that we have? And if we're going to be partnering with organizations in the city, say there's an organization working on LGBTQ rights, that doesn't necessarily fit into one of those 3 policy areas that we discussed, except for intersection. And
well, I think what does, again, and from the best expression of date conversation that didn't happen, that would be a place where I think we could exercise our advocacy, and maybe it's a letter of support, or maybe it's, endorsing of it, or whatever it maybe looks like. I think that, in particular, the community engagement piece, which is down here as well, not only was going to be able to look at, like, how are we sponsored from a monetary perspective, but how do we engage with maybe other groups or things that are occurring that may be outside of the purview of those three priorities? And what is the best expression of that? Is it a letter of support and or attending an event, and just honing in on one of those things so that we do have and leave space for the policy chair to then do work within those three? Because that's the whole goal of having a priority. If they were gonna do something, it would be within the realm of those.
So the reason there was a policy chair, which is myself with an sort of ad hoc function, was because at the time there was no explicit focus on policy, and it wasn't really part of our dialogue, and this is an earlier iteration of this body than what you see before you. And so to me that was concerning because at the time I was doing a lot of national and localized legislative work, and I was like, why aren't we talking about this more here? I know there were bits and pieces here and there, but it didn't seem like it was part of the group sort of function, focus, think, all that stuff. And since then, we've gone through some changes, some growth, and I think that there are more people interested in it. It seems to be more of a natural part of the dialogue, which is good, and the group think. And I would advocate that the only way that policy work will be effective is if each of our focus area groups really tackle policy as part of that multiple pronged approach to affecting change. And then whoever is serving as an advisor, I don't know that it has to be a chair, it could be a sort of a policy advisor sort of function, can help outline sort of what it is to effectively legislate and pass a bill, those kinds of things. It's not just legislation at the state level, it's how do you affect policy change within the bureaus here, how do you do that kind of work, more administrative, interpretive policy work. And I think there is room for that. I don't think it just has to be a volunteer member. I think we can also draw upon some of the policy expertise at OEHR and so forth.
Or external organization.
I would just, whoever serves in that, I would hope they would have that requisite experience, expertise to do that, because there are different levels and types of policy work. And so I see it as more like the way that this will actually work is all of us are doing a piece of it instead of one person or two people, and we're focused about what it is so that we can have some policy wins. And maybe focusing on the state sort of landscape is good for some things, but maybe really looking at what are some Portland city policy changes that need to be changed or affected. So yeah, those are some thoughts, reflections.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess I'm kind of, what's the next best place, the next step for that, I guess is the question, and how do we see that come to fruition? I think first step, if we can get the Office of Government Relations to come in and do that 101 piece, I think if there are, can I just get a hand of, is anyone actually interested? I feel like I know maybe a few folks who are specifically interested in this level of work. I'm gonna put back on YouTube really quick, who have just some expertise in this, and at least the lexicon as it is, so to say, with stuff. So if you guys would be interested, I would love to see even just, hey guys, if we're gonna do these are some smart next steps. Because maybe it doesn't look like a policy chair. Maybe it absolutely doesn't look like that, And with our three priorities, with our multi-pronged approach, you know what I'm saying? Even if you guys just want to put together a one-pager, or just it doesn't have to be a one-pager, a PowerPoint or a Prezi on the next steps for us to actually have this become a part of our work, I think that would be helpful. I don't know who all is interested in it. Damon, I know you. Damon, Rebecca, are you? Yeah. I know that that's done what you do. And Ashley, anyone else outside of you three? Tracy, you would be as well. Awesome. So if you guys want to, on your own, I believe we have everybody's email because Kenya sent us, a roster before. Just kind of either by email or something, maybe just build a document where you can start talking about this or meet offline. I think that would be super helpful. Damon, Teresa, Becca.
And it's what would this coordinator or advisor person?
If it's that, or what would the next steps be, getting this information?
Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear Ashley, is Ashley in the group too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, just what does true policy level engagement look like for HRC, and what would be the smart next step? And again, if we want to use that 365, what's going to be important and relevant for this upcoming session, that would be helpful, because again, we don't have to we don't have to solve the entire thing.
So there's two kind of groups that I saw form earlier on in this conversation. There was the one who's in general who's interested in policy, legislative stuff, and then the second is who's interested in forming the group that's going to say what the HRC does policy-wise.
I think we're gonna pull it up a little bit and just say what would the next steps be to ensure that the HRC can move into policy level work. We know that we're gonna have 3 priorities, we know that those 3 priorities are going to be multi-pronged, and a part of that is in particular policy level work. And so I think if this group of 4 people gets together, kind of like you and Soji did, Rebecca, to even say, this is how we could maybe do community engagement, even if it's just something like that, that's gonna help us at least see where we are or
An
not.
understanding of the process for those
Who are outside of
the
it,
process.
not know.
At all.
Yes. So we'd love to be led by your guys' just thoughts and, you know, and again, what's the next first steps to do that? Okay. Thank you. Do you know something else?
Just like to make a note that Alan is also well aware of this process. It's choosing to not be a part of it.
Well, Alan might be able to offer his.
Damon's skill set is significantly higher than mine.
Chair of the housing.
Well, when you guys bring us back something, and I don't know if you guys,
Yeah, we don't have one.
if you guys feel like you want to do that by July, we're talking July is coming up as a lot. Or if you guys, and I guess I'm just also thinking about us talking about August may be super late. What do you guys think? Just a few ideas put together on next, which could be 3 next steps. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to solve everything.
Well, I would like to do a one-pager or whatever it is on like, not just the next steps, but what are we proposing?
Yeah.
And then the steps to get there, and I think it takes longer when you have a lot of different writers, but I mean, I can do it in an hour. So, I think we can do this, yeah.
Okay. So maybe by July, just a touch base, and see where you guys are so far with
I
that.
think we should have to have
down
down
pager.
bill, like, that's, yeah.
You can send it before, right? Because we talked about the fact that we can still look at and receive and maybe, you know, just go from that. But at least by July, we'll be able to come back and say, hey guys, look where we are, and these are the next steps that we're gonna move forward with. And it's been informed by our awesome engaged commissioners. It's like a mini task force.
Mini task force.
We gotta use task force sparingly, because this is one task, and not a committee. Task force, okay.
Of course.
Yay, okay, well, that's awesome.
Oh, I was just gonna give a quick update on I was gonna take on dealing with the revisit of the MOU with OEHR. Can you help me to schedule a meeting, I think, beginning of July with Dante and a couple of others to talk about that? So what I wanna do before then is I'll work on sort of, you know, getting clarity from the group about the issues that maybe we want to. We talked about, you know, clarifying our staff FTE time and, you know, just make sure.
So the follow-ups that came from the.
Yeah, are there notes from the?
There are
Okay.
notes for that, I just wanna
So
make sure that I go
they're
in
posted,
with the
yeah.
correct information, so I'm working on that, and there's a meeting at the beginning of July. July 2nd.
Okay.
Send that to you.
Yeah. Ordinance and parking lot were something that Sienna was gonna help with, and.
Siobhan's not working on the project, she's working on the community garden.
Oh, darn it, look at me.
Good thing she's not here to set the straight on that.
Yeah.
Now it's a community garden. So, and again, once we get the notes back from our facilitators, while she is being, is the person that will continue to poke us, kind of at like, hey guys, don't forget, this was one of the things that was in the community garden. If you guys see that, if you recognize it, if you find a place that you have energy for to push something up that makes sense, or to bring about in a conversation here, or as we're building out agendas, if you wanna say, hey, don't forget, maybe can we spend some time to talk about this? Let's do that, let's just make it happen, because there was, I don't know if you guys remember, our garden was jam-packed with a ton. There's a lot of work to do there, and Teresa, when you see the notes, you'll be able to see kind of how many things went there, in an effort to really be concise and stay on task with our agenda. So she'll help just kind of continue to poke us with that, and even if it's just a, hey guys, don't forget, this is what was in the community garden, recognize that that'll be coming from her. and we kind of remember the same thing with ordinance that she was going to do. I put here, the AJ work, and I put it in quotations just because that's how I listed it at, the retreat for the administration of justice work. Again, kind of police accountability, law enforcement, whatever we'd like to call it or not call it. One of the things that we talked about was spending some more time there, which I think is absolutely apropos. We have had many times where that work or the kind of different perspectives that we have literally put a stopgap in front of us getting something done. And so I think we all agreed, and let me know if anyone has anything since the past few days that you had to sit and talk about it, that we would hopefully maybe come to another place where we can have a facilitated conversation on that. Are we also feeling okay with that? Really being able to hone in on tactics, knowing that it would be that multi-pronged approach that was, what did I write down? Continuing to build strong relationships, policy level change, and community education and empowerment. Are y'all still good to go with that? So one of the things that I'll just let you guys know, once the facilitators get us back information, I'm also going to make sure that we understand the evaluations. We all may have felt that it was good, but there may have been places where we felt that there was also opportunity to make it better. Then we'll use that to decide if we should use, R&W again to be that group. I think we maybe would, because it sounds like we're okay with that, but I just want to make sure that we're making the best informed decision for that. Okay, that is good. So we are.
So is there a time frame for that? I mean, that work continues, things come up every day.
Yeah.
So, I think sooner rather than later is better, I just don't know how we get there.
Right.
And I have to leave early, so.
Yeah, so they should be getting us the notes so they're also looking at all the other, we had like a bazillion papers up on the wall, so they're also making sure that all of those are recorded and found in there. They said by the end of the week we'll have that. I asked for that again and the evaluations to help us then to make the decision on if we're gonna move forward with them, which again, I assume that we absolutely are, but I wanted to do that in an informed way.
But I'm talking specifically about the administrative justice conversation.
Yeah, I think our goal would be, even if we were to have kind of an ad hoc, I mean,
Does
what do you
anyone
guys think?
have a feeling
I
on
feel-
how much time we wanna?
That would be-
Because
yeah.
I think that's how we figure out.
how soon we can get that conversation in.
We had like this kind of strategic planning between CPRC, CLEAR, and HRC folks who are interested in it.
We did have a meeting on it.
Why don't we just continue that conversation, because that's administration of justice stuff,
Yeah.
right?
So
we
you
just-
said you had a meeting?
Yeah, we've had.
We did, but everyone didn't come. In particular, yeah, we had folks that it would have been really helpful to have everybody there to really move this conversation forward.
And so I feel like we should just continue having that conversation, because that's the administration of justice stuff, so we can plan a meeting for.
Yeah, we can
So do
still.
a meeting offline from the monthly meeting.
Yeah, we can still definitely continue to have those, and then if we need, we may decide that post that, we don't need another facilitated conversation, so. Do you remember who convened, was that you who got us together, who did that?
Amy and,
Okay.
Amy, I think who started it,
Okay.
so I can convene it this time.
I think that would be a good space to address some of what Charles brought up about the issues around how do you define these issues and that are happening right now.
And how do we respond to these things that are happening? What I would say is, in dealing with in other spaces, when you're doing work, knowing that there is innovation that can go into that and change, there's still business as usual. And so I wouldn't say that we're like absolutely out on a limb without any understanding. I think we can go forth in the same way, understanding that there is in fact a sitting clear group, there is in fact a CPRC group. But as we get and have this conversation, if we know that we're going to start changing things, then let's go forward. And we still have the PAM that's out there, right, that can help us if something comes up.
And I think that to me, that's one of the issues that I'm hearing about that is that it's unclear what business as usual means with CLEAR and CPRC and administration of justice overall. So that's a conversation I think that needs to happen. And I don't think it happened Saturday, and I don't think it happened at the.
As we started
Yeah, and so that's what that's the timeframe I'm trying to, because what I'm saying is I don't think we can do business as usual without that conversation occurring.
So
Okay.
I feel like we need to meet this month, or within the next month, and try to have.
It'd be great to facilitate it.
Yeah, in June, and then try to have something by next meeting or the meeting after, next HRC meeting.
So is that a 4-hour meeting? Is that a 2-hour meeting? What do you guys think? If we were to be able to pull
We
something
might need
together, how it
4.
works? Do people feel like if they're
You know how much
interested in
time
that
we already
work,
talked about it?
and not everyone has to come to that table, but if you are in fact interested or know that that's a group that you'll be sitting on or that you'll be engaging with, knowing that it is in fact one of our priorities going forth, we know that it's just a locked-in thing. A 4-hour conversation, if we were able to do that on a work day or a Saturday.
And what would be the goals of that meeting?
To really come out and understand, do we still need to go forth with CPRC, with CLEAR, understand that we have a
I think
connection to
so,
DOJ?
If I could, I think the question is, I think it's how does HRC do administration of justice work? And so I think we could throw out the titles and the current setup. I think the question is, how do we do it? And the question is that we do it differently in CPRC and CLEAR, and there are a lot of different ways to do it. And so I think the conversation that I want to get to is how do we do it? And I think it's a conversation we never got to. And I think it was the intent of the meeting that Amy tried to bring together.
It definitely was.
And that's why I think I hope we can get to that conversation.
That sounds like a 4-hour conversation to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, so a 4-hour conversation. Diallo, if you want
I'm
to.
taking
sorry, Damon.
note of all of this. What I think I should do is just send a doodle out for some dates. Do people prefer weekdays or weekends or after 5, or should I just give it all?
So here's the thing, if it's gonna be professionally facilitated, outside of us just coming together and having our own conversation, we're gonna have to connect with them and
Okay.
follow the process.
And we
Yeah.
have to follow the
Procurement process.
which is gonna take
So,
a really long time.
So we may just be coming together on our own, which we can do, guys, for this particular conversation. That's the only thing that we're coming together to talk about, so. Yeah.
I would want to come to the meeting, and for me, it's like, just because I feel like I'm really interested in how the work does move forward, but I think the 4-hour piece, that's really a large amount of time for what the goal that we mentioned. And even if it ran over a little bit, I think that's one thing, but I think, let's say 4 hours to this is like, because our meeting here is like less than, it's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I don't know, just thinking about.
So do we think that really, what is the time that we think we'd like to ask folks for?
Let's give ourselves a 3-hour window, but say like we might finish, let's have 2 hours, I don't know. Let's-
No, that's not true though.
I know.
Or you never do it in 2-hour chunks.
We can do it in 2-hour chunks.
Because it is
Let's
hard
do
to
it
do
in
that in
2
4
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
It
So
may
we'll
just
do,
with carbon
so I'll set a
schedule.
meeting for 2 hours,
And a follow-up for 2?
and a follow-up for 2.
Okay,
And
look
people
at us.
having like guiding thoughts and not taking a time just for feelings. That's not.
Yeah, well, that was a part of what the facilitator started to do, and I do have a facilitation agenda that wasn't necessarily the one that everyone had, so I can, pull from that. Go ahead.
Another thing too, that did not come up on Saturday, and if you get a chance, Shabri, if you could check in with Elle Weatherwright, PVP, they are, or she is considering a redesign of the advisory groups for the Bureau, so the CPRC falls under that, so there's another discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm consulting her on that, just for full disclosure.
And with this, I think it also kind of falls in line with this, if you look down a bit, convening the C groups, this has been some groups that have also said, look, what does it mean to come together and talk about all this work that's happening, and are we doing it in a way that's actually gonna make any change, or are we all working on the exact same thing but doing it in silos? And so maybe that's something that, we can have Elle at the table to help do. You're helping her anyway, so that's great. I know the CRC, the chair of the CRC, IPR has talked about doing it. We have 2 of the C groups ourselves, so we can collectively take these conversations that we're having and come together and do it. Because the whole thing we were talking about was building agency throughout the city because of all of these C groups coming together. And that might also help us understand what our administration of justice work looks like. And it can be tied to a larger, thing. So, yeah. Please do.
I feel like we need to have a conversation maybe around all those things about HRTTF or HTTF. And and what's going on with that, because there's no commissioner on there, there's Ashley as a liaison, and I don't know who to charge, or who to get to, like, I don't know who the contact is for money things. And
So I thought I remember, Ashley, you mentioning you haven't gone to those meetings.
I have.
Yeah, so.
And I've also been communicating outside of meetings. Can we, I think there's opportunity to further flesh that out. I have not had a chance to speak with Kyle or some of the, can the executive committee kind of flag that as something, just to explore, and of course can be brought to the larger body again, but I just, since they weren't able to be there to represent themselves, and I was kind of there while they were conducting the free legal clinic, which is part of their work. I want to make sure that I adequately represented their interests there, and maybe there is interest in there being, like, for example, potentially Multnomah County could host folks and they could convene under that umbrella as opposed to the HRC. I just don't really know the ins and outs of that thinking, because I've been speaking with them more about like potential legislative stuff or other things, and not like their whole existence as a body with this process, this planning process that we went through. Does that make sense? So, do you want me to?
that's what I'm looking for, is the person on the HRC who can make the money request and can be the sort of the contact person also. David wasn't there, and then Alan stepped in to help.
So I
Right,
think
so
we know
what
that
I'm
that's
saying is I
actually-
don't know if they will, if they feel dead set on being an extension of the Human Rights Commission, considering the 3 new priority areas that were identified, or almost all the way identified. If they do want to be under the HRC, then I would be that person, or potentially someone else. If not, maybe there's another forum, a place that they can be convened that they're just as happy with. So I wasn't able to bring that to them and hear what they would have to say.
But I appreciate you doing that, because it is something that we started, so I think we do have some ownership to it simply because it started here. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you being there and being a part of it. We do have some sort of, we need to hand it off in a way that makes sense, or at least, you know.
And I think if you guys hand it off, that means that it's no longer a committee of the HRC. Because currently, it's an HRC committee.
Right, right.
And by actually sitting and working on that committee, I see that there's direct connection.
Yeah, so it could either go like that with me being that person and maybe others joining, or maybe they
Or
are
signing
open
up.
to the idea of existing under another sort of umbrella entity, and us sponsoring or some other commitment or some support that we can lend. But I do want to check in with all of them, so I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone.
So currently, you're the liaison.
Yep, that's been true for a while.
So then you,
I am a committee member too, but okay.
can you and Kyle come to some agreement about, we'll make the budget request until that other meeting about what they want to happen in terms of the relationship happens? So,
Let's sidebar, because I know nothing about what Kyle's going to do about that, but if it's just him giving it to me to do, or... Let me first see if they want to exist under the HRC, or if they want to go separate.
And
I don't think there's anything that needs to be done at the moment, is there?
I think Ashley's.
so
yeah, I currently.
Ashley's gonna be asking them an important question, which is, do they wanna be a part of the HRC due to our 3 subject areas that we've chosen?
For the record, one of the members was
And-
going to apply to be the HRC commissioner, but the boss wouldn't let him.
So, oh, you just spoke. Okay, sorry. So that's one thing that I worry about, kinda, is this going to divide us from people in the community because we have subject areas that might not be what they are focused on?
So,
And that's why, as a commission for human rights, I don't wanna be divisive, or even divide people within our group.
So I think what we can do, and what I can be charged with, and you can send people my way, is the idea of prioritizing something does not mean that other things don't matter. And that there will be a way that we sponsor, engage, you know, direct help to advocate for other things. But we also recognize that as a volunteer body of 15 people, that we cannot do everything. And everything cannot be our guiding light, because, I mean, it would be everywhere. So if you would like to hand that conversation over to me, if we can continue to build that as an understanding for us, then we can be 15 sounding boards for that as well. If it is something we in fact believe, again, it does not mean that come next 365, that's not front and center is what we're doing. So I don't think it ever means that we're not engaging in ways that don't look like those top 3 priorities. I would, in fact, I would see it as
And
us
I-
actually getting stuff done within those top 3 priorities.
Yeah, thanks for actually saying priorities, because I keep forgetting that that's just what they are, is priorities. I must be putting too much weight to them, because I care about them.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think we all do, and in fact, I
Yeah.
think there are some of us who are gonna say those 3 things have no connection to what actually brought us here, right? So, I mean, you talked about immigration work is something that you're really passionate about, and it's what you like to do here. But I see you engaging in many ways around this table today, and other ways that are not necessarily directly connected to immigration. And I think that would be the spirit in which we go forward with this work, and so hopefully that's what guides us, and knowing that it can come back on, it can be something that we exist in, and or just advocate for through our community engagement efforts that doesn't look like a priority for this 365, so.
And I never understood either of those 3 things as being like the only thing that we're gonna work on. Just something that, a few hats that we wear, or something we always have in the back of our head that we're aware of, but if other things come along, it's like, nope,
Right. And the goal of the community engagement piece was really to say, when other things do come along, how do we engage? And what level of work are we doing? And I think the other, that, we can keep that little 365 up in our head. If, even in the work that we're doing, the police, the administration of justice work, what's the one thing we're trying to get done? And maybe this year, it's like convening all of these groups. What do these groups look like? We map them out, continuing to be a leader in the DOJ work, and that might be enough for this next 365. And so, I think it's okay to be realistic also with 15 volunteers coming together.
I think that's one framework I would try to put it in, as much as, it's hard to admit. I think we have to admit our capacity as people who, we are 15 people and we are volunteers, and like it or not, we have a certain capacity to do a certain amount of work. And so what can we be most effective at within that capacity that we have?
Right. So, talking about capacity, we have 18 minutes left here. One of the things, I'm just gonna go through quickly before we forget. June HRC Social, we are going to do this before the 30th. We have a date of the 24th, 25th, or 26th. I think everyone almost has their cell phone here, or at least a capacity to write those down.
Just a quick question, when you say social, does that mean, what does that mean? Does that mean like, or?
So what it means is it's a place for us to come together and continue to build relationships. We've talked about, and I think it got mentioned 8 times at the very least during our retreat, that building personal relationships outside of just this meeting at the first Wednesday was absolutely, just important in making sure that we could do this work and we can engage in whatever ways we need to do it. So I took that task on as chair to make certain that we not only have some budget for it, but that we also actually plan it and get it done. So on the 24th, 25th, or 26th, you guys tell me what sounds best so far.
25th, the 24th.
Not the 25th.
So I'll send out a doodle, and we'll go from there. And I think the idea is that there will be some food purchased, and it'll be a place for us to come together, and if folks would like to also, have something else while they're having their food, then you're welcome to, but, somebody can have water and lemonade?
Well, not everybody.
Someone, you can drink water and lemonade. I can drink water and lemonade. Anyways.
Speaking of, goodness, is that weekend, does anybody, do we think?
Have we done that in the past?
No, and do we think it would be a good thing to be a part of that? Is that?
It is that weekend.
Yeah, so that's that whole weekend, so.
Well, and this is also, you guys, I'm thinking of like
there's opportunity.
like a 5 to 7 maybe time. It's not meant to be a full thing. We could do, we have another one that would come up in January, meant to be kind of a winter version, so a summer and winter time that is specific. We're coming together, guys. We're gonna get to know each other.
Is this the time where we're honoring outgoing commissioners like the night brought?
Folks, yeah, we can invite
Okay.
folks that as well.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I feel like we should honor Amy.
Yes.
We were you at the last one? We did that. Okay, cool,
What's the
okay.
name for good?
24, 25, 26.
26,
Okay.
27, 28.
But we've had earlier conversations about honoring outgoing commissioners over food or something outside of this meeting structure or
Right.
format. And there were a couple of commissions who had volunteered to actually host, and they are no longer on the body. And so I brought this forward to the executive committee, and that kind of resulted in this, like, the social event.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, we can make it whatever we want to. I think this is really for us to like not have an agenda and to come together as a group of folks and say, you know, we could even, it could be in this room, just sans an agenda, right? That could happen, but maybe let's do it outside. Let's, you know, get out of this particular building. And just enjoy getting to know each other, building relationships.
But I think what Ashley's saying is important, that was actually the nexus of the.
Yeah.
of
That's why this
thing.
came about.
Right, is for us to invite those folks, so that it's important that they're there, and to be able to say, take a minute to say socially, to say thank you to them for their service.
So I think what we can do is once we get to a date, then I can ask Kenya to maybe also invite the most recent, or I don't know, how far back were you guys hoping to go?
Quite a bit, I have a list, so. It's
Oh, okay.
So I could, yeah.
We can go to the
That I've been
beginning,
thinking of.
Kathleen.
Yeah, we could go to the beginning. There are some people who didn't really get like a proper send off, so.
I see. Well, here's the goal. The goal is for it to happen twice a year. Where we'll come together. We will purchase some foods to have there, and we want to invite as many, or you know, whoever. The goal is just for us to come together. So June and January are the 2 dates. I will send out a doodle. Please respond to it, because it may just be me eating an entire plate of shrimp. I'm kidding. Okay. Right. Urco tickets, we have 6 seats for the Urco event this Friday.
2 are going.
Oh, 4, okay. Who's going?
This guy.
Oh, yes, okay, awesome, awesome. So we have you going, anyone else who would like to go?
I'm going on another ticket, so.
Oh, you already have one, so you'll be there though? Yay.
Urkel.
It's the Urco Africa House event this Friday at
Is that base?
6:30. I'm thinking I might go, I think I might need to, but I'm just not sure. I wanted to come and wait and see if anyone else needed to take any. Anyone? Anyone?
It's gonna be really
Bueller.
fun.
If you beat me by a second.
What did you say?
Is it Bueller?
Oh.
Okay, I'm gonna write down, wait, okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna write down Daniel, Shabri, and Marcia. Marcia only wanted them if nobody else wanted them. So since nobody else seems to want the last 2, I'll give them to Marcia. I just need to let the people know who are planning the event, that it'll be you 3 plus 1.
I think she said
That's what she just said.
Oh,
Plus 1, plus
Shabri
1.
plus 1. Oh, plus 1.
Okay, we're gonna go, look, mark that off. Okay, guys, last thing.
Wait, one more, I think.
June
we-
29th.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have, I sent out a doodle about, our working with youth training, and only a few of you responded to it, so. I have secured Andrea Marquez and a youth facilitator to co-facilitate a working with youth workshop, and it is set with them for June 29th from 6 to 8. I said 5:45 to 8 because we want to actually get started at 6. And I am still working on the location, but 29th, it's a Monday.
It's on the agenda from
It's under.
5:45 to 8, is that really correct?
Well, it's a 2 hour, so 6 to 8, so.
Oh, okay.
I was being.
I'm like, I don't even remember writing that, it's because you did. Thank you.
So the time is booked with her, so I think we need to honor that if we possibly can. I don't know how many can make it, but.
I may have a space you can use, so
Oh, we need
I'll
a
check.
space?
Well, I wasn't sure if we should do it here, or she needs technology and, you know, for doing a projection PowerPoint. She had a list of what she needs, and I wasn't sure if it was the thing we should do here or figure out another location, so.
Is your space that baby?
Yes. And it's in Northeast Portland.
And for, if it's
Well,
from
I'm
5 to
gonna
8,
be
is that?
coming from the reception for the disability history exhibit.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's fine, I'll just take however long it takes, but that's that same thing.
What time does the reception start?
It's 3 to 5.
Oh, perfect, okay.
So if we
Oh,
do
yeah,
6
so
to 8,
downtown,
but I'm just like saying,
That's a long day.
that's what I'm doing. So, but I can be there as well for the youth training.
Okay. So I will work out the details of where and maybe talk to you about,
Yeah,
That.
I'll see, I'll check calendar. to get
Um,
it.
and then I will send out confirmation details and whoever can make it.
Is it possible to send out, and I don't know how this works for folks, like a Google Calendar invite or just a calendar invite? Does that work for, no, not for some people?
It would be groovy for me. If you did that for me, I would think it was groovy.
Me too.
I can definitely.
I'm just thinking, usually appears at least in some shape or form like an invite, right? If it's a,
I think
Does it-
you can make it a public link, I've made that before.
just for me, I mean, if something's on my calendar, it usually helps me to be there.
So Alan, it doesn't work for you, so
I
if
just put it
somebody,
on my calendar. So
Yeah, me
okay.
too. Like, I don't use the.
because otherwise, if I delete it or move it, then you all get an email that says it's been deleted, and then you call me and say, is that meeting canceled? So that's why I don't do this with
I see.
my own.
you can delete it so it doesn't notify anyone.
It only notifies if you're the organizer, I think. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
We can also hide the
I just put it on my calendar.
Okay, well, we'll just send it out and it'll be, you can just not click anything
Actually,
and,
what I do, so don't be offended if I do not respond to your request, because that's what's happened. And I don't actually even tell you that I'm not responding.
okay, so,
Actually, he's telling you now.
So. I'm not responding, so don't be surprised when I don't respond.
okay.
I do put it on my calendar, it's on my calendar.
All right.
So we have 9 minutes left, guys. I think one of the things that may not occur right now, but I did mention discussion to occur at next executive committee meeting is the bottom city liaison work. So we're gonna set up an executive committee, meeting for the next 3 months going forth, and then maybe I'll just share that. It's in the past been open to chairs of committees to come, along with the executive team, which at this point is myself, Audrey, and Alan has been like the past chair, who's been sitting there, because it's always meant for the past chair to also be there.
But you have so much, you just have to be there.
I didn't invite, we'll talk.
Yes, so anyways,
But anyways.
that conversation, we're gonna at least start to have that, I wanted to place that conversation in some place. So that's where it'll be happening, and it may just move to the next agenda, but that's there. Somebody's not here, the community engagement piece, I wanted to talk about that here as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone at the last meeting was about the sponsorship criteria that could, most of it's a proposal, but of how we have a sponsorship program here. So, and like I said before, it's based off of what the Oregon Health Authority uses and what the Northwest Health Foundation uses. So it's really specific, and then if we approve that proposal, then we can just make a very easy application based off of the proposal, so that's super easy. And I don't know, I mean, how everyone uses time, in terms of like, if you wanted to talk about the proposal, I didn't bring them again, because they were printed off last time. I can't email them, but I think what would be helpful, for me is just to see what our next steps are in terms of like approving that. If people want to approve that, and then also kind of what that would look like in terms of having an executive together to like take the applications every month and then review them, and then I'm just kind of what that, the logistics would look like. And then and then what our budget line would be for, that piece.
Well, and I think it's an integral part of us deciding to do this priority work, because then everything else will live over here. And I think we may also be able to decide that we're not gonna do an entry every month, because that might be a lot. We might have like 2 times a year that we're going to, take in requests and things. But I think that and that's a financial request. I think the other piece, and we can explain that as we would communicate to the public, would be if you're just interested in us signing on an endorsement, like we've done that in the past. If you're interested in us showing up to an event of yours, that's a way of community engagement. So these are, again, and Diallo, for you, these are ways that we can engage in some of these other issues that are not our top 3 priorities, but still have them be meaningful. And oftentimes we've had people who come and say just you being there is a form of engagement for them that they appreciate. The man who does the child work, and we've shown up many times and he is overjoyed with that. And so I think us continuing to Bergeron, thank you. Yes, and so he says that's been great for him, and so I don't want us to discount that level of engagement is also important to community members. And so it's really important to get this done, and hopefully we can vote on or take that proposal and really look at it on the agenda for July, because that will also be the place where we hopefully will be done with that other priority.
Could you send me like on
I made a sound and then Stuff happened, sorry.
Trying to
It's
hold
okay,
it in.
it's on camera for you. Look at it.
That's good.
Are we good to go with that? Did folks get why we're doing that and?
And I would add that, the difference I think between just showing up to an event that may be free and then versus sponsoring is kind of which community we're connecting with, and I think with a lot of, I guess underserved communities, that sponsorship is a really big part, that's kind of building that community capacity, people who do the work that they're doing, that we're supporting in different ways, and so that's kind of why I think, in terms of community engagement for the HRC sponsorship, having a sponsorship like piece is like a really important thing to do that, so.
And that can also help us drive, I don't remember if that proposal specified a line item, like a proposed line item for that as a whole.
Yeah, because it was just for like what the sponsorship.
Because that would actually be helpful for budgeting, is to allocate a certain amount of money in our budget every year that's going to be used, and then we talk about as things come up, what.
Exactly, if not, it'd be hard.
It seems like the best process to me.
Well, and it is in fact us helping this other work that other awesome CBOs are doing that we aren't necessarily taking on we may not be the expert in that anyways, right? Like what Joe Bergeron did, like maybe he and or other groups, and he's convened groups that, kind of in a forum place, that helps us work on or be a part of that work through that capacity building. So I think as we do that, maybe we can think of when we come to July, what a budget line item for that, what the amount could make sense.
Yeah, how much do we have for this next, year?
At the next executive committee meeting, I'll be able to connect with Dante in particular and find out. So that will happen before July, and I can maybe bring that information and then say that this is what we have to place on this, piece. But we'll know it's an amount. And I think in the past it's been as much as 5. No, we're talking about for this in particular. Okay, no, I was actually talking about this line item in particular.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I can talk about that and we haven't done it in the past either, so this doesn't mean it's gonna be a windfall of, oh my gosh, we need $20,000, right? And I think that also requires a much deeper level of how we decide to really do that work, and so I think keeping it smaller allows us to not have to do the full grant process.
Yeah, and I think seeing it as kind of more of a pilot program for the next year and then seeing how it works and things like that. And at the Oregon Health Authority, I do oversee our sponsorship program, so I do have that background.
Yeah.
But I think just for the HRC for this next year, just being like, okay, let's see how this goes, and then maybe having a more significant line item in the future as well.
So offline, if you want to propose what you think may be a good pilot kind of line for that, that's relevant to what we as a commission have even had holistically, and that would be helpful.
Well, can I do that after you talk about the total HRC budget? So that would make more informed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can share this. Okay, great. So we are 2 minutes away. This HTTF conversation, it looks like, Ashley, you're gonna have offline. The CDC, one of the things that I wanted to talk about while we were at retreat was the cadence and plan development of the forums, and the forums being our best expression of the D in Dave, which is discovery. I think we have knocked those out of the park in the past, from my understanding, even from those that I wasn't at, but I know that those have helped inform the work that we're doing now. Even Clear coming about came because of a forum. I think your guys' housing forum was awesome. I felt so proud to be a commissioner that day, and I think that holding one of those annually, and we kind of talked about how it made sense to maybe have just a general one every 3 years. The other two to really hone in on priorities will allow us to kind of look at and gather community engagement. Support might be the word. And so we didn't have a larger conversation about that, but I was hoping to just build a plan so we can say, hey, yeah, this is 2015, this is the form we're gonna have in 2016, this is the form we're gonna have when we get to 2017, this is that next 2016 would be the 3-year, the community, the larger
just general
civil,
roundtable.
exactly, sorry.
So
yeah.
What I'm hearing is a call to start planning the next one.
That was, yeah.
Okay. So I would be willing to.
That would be sometime this year.
So the 2015 one, as far as I know and what we talked about so far, may in fact be, and I think it would be perfect timing. No, I'm talking about 2015. Oh, we are in June. Wow, that happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was getting at.
Well, yeah, no, I don't know if we need to run from it yet, because this conversation about convening the C groups, that might be an
Yeah.
aspect of that
Yeah.
forum. And I think that that was kind of our idea, that would be, it's absolutely apropos right now with DOJ getting set, COAB, you know, the tone that is at work. I would love to maybe have that be the forum, and maybe that's how we convene this group, and maybe we can talk about it.
Do a roundtable.
On that work and really help it map out stuff. But then 2016 would be that larger one, and I don't know who was here when we did 2013 and what went into that, but were you, okay? So maybe we can start also planning for that in
Actually,
2016.
You was here, I didn't do anything with it,
Oh, okay.
except show up.
I did some of the initial conceptualization.
So it sounds like we have a plan for the next 2 years. This year's will be some sort of convening around the C groups, and by C we mean police, law enforcement kind of work. And then 2016 would be a general one. Look at
That
us,
makes a
we
lot of
did
sense,
it.
I think you get an idea, I think we should go ahead and say that and start setting the date and then put together a team.
Well, I'll go forward with that as I'm looking at that convening piece, and we're talking about that would be our goal, is to
And is
use
it-
that as our plan.
So, Diallo, are you the chair of CDC?
Yeah.
Okay, so is that where that's gonna live?
I don't know.
That's the thing, she's talking about
Well-
not having CPRC or CDC anymore, and
Oh.
having it.
And allowing it be this recognition that we'll be holding a forum each year that would look like, that would essentially be 1 every 3 years as a general.
But CDC is responsible, would be the group that's responsible for the event itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we
So
would
one
definitely.
thing that might be helpful is that, you know, CDC did the general roundtable, but then they partnered with HRTF for the second one. I don't see why this one couldn't be like a CDC partnership with CLEAR
And
or
CDC.
CPRC.
And or whatever that. is.
Whatever it's called.
Yeah,
You guys are talking about partnering with your own.
I know, that's what I'm.
yeah, that's what ended up happening with the housing.
I think that would great for housing, yeah.
For what, like, how, why?
Okay, so
Because
instead of having the
CDC
general CDC do all of the
Right,
planning,
that's
they went with the issue-specific
right.
group that was also addressing that for trafficking. So in this case, if it's about police
be
accountability or
CPRC.
general justice administrative work, making sure that those who are issue-focused are also participating in the
Exactly.
general.
So this is just to get bodies into the conversation. Okay, I was like, it's all the same money.
Yeah, no.
It's not about.
That's
It's
a
not about
deal.
money. Okay, guys, so we know that the 2015 one will be that, 2016 will be general. I think we may have done it, the city liaison work stuff we'll talk about next time.
If there were a committee for the meeting or something.
Yes. We'll have that in another meeting. Are we ready to adjourn? Any other good things for the good of the order?
Yeah, Pride is coming up.
Oh, it's on here too, sorry.
And Marsha wants to know, Marsha wants to know how many people are willing to attend the Gay Pride March, and tell people that she wants everybody to know that she invited people from Black Pride to march with us during the regular Pride. And we're marching with the mayor, so Black Pride is with us.
With Deep and the city.
Yeah.
And who's gonna pick up the banner?
That's the
Will
question.
you be
I
there?
won't
Or
be
you
there.
not gonna be there?
So that's the weekend that GRE happens.
Well, that's right.
And
'cause
so Jeff is the only one from the office who's gonna be back. And he's gonna be marching with the office flag.
It's on Sunday.
Is it on Sunday, Diallo?
Yeah.
This Sunday?
So if.
Not this Sunday.
Next
Next.
Ken, how
No,
about
it's
Philip Hilaire?
Pardon me?
How about Philip Hilaire from the office? Can you help out?
I don't know his schedule, I don't know if he's planning to come to Pride or anything, but,
Well, Jeff's gonna be there.
Jeff's gonna
We know
be
that
there.
Marsha's also gonna be there. So if Jeff can bring that, if
So
you
I
guys pass
can-
along that Jeff can hand it off to Marsha.
Jeff can bring it past to Marcia. Last year, we handed out universal declarations as we walked around the streets. You know, people were standing there, so we just stuck them out and people took them. So I'm wondering if you guys wanna do that again.
Yes, I think that's a great
And
idea.
I'll have a bag of them ready for you guys.
Okay.
Is it the 14th or the 21st?
The 14th.
Okay, so you can let Marsha know that she can plan to get the flag from Jeff.
I think Marcia should coordinate with Jeff about where our meetup spot is and what, like, who to look for, because it gets pretty chaotic, and she should know about where we're gonna convene to take off from.
Okay, and last thing, anyone else who knows that they will be there, plan to be there, if you're interested in walking down with Marsha at Black Pride.
That regular Pride.
Pardon me?
It's just regular general.
No,
pride.
and
No,
Black
because
Friday.
Black Pride is joining
It'll
us in
be
particular.
Yeah.
flag.
Yeah.
Well,
I
there are
know that.
different pride marches, so is this
Yes.
the general march?
This is the general
And
march.
Black Pride's
And
joining us.
Yeah, and some people from Black Pride are joining us. There's also another Black Pride.
Black Pride, yeah.
Another Black Parade and whole event was,
Right.
that takes place, I think, the week after this.
So for the one that's happening on the 14th, if you guys are interested, please let Marcia know. She will be there with our banner. Hopefully someone else is also there to hold the other side of the banner. And it sounds like we'll have universal declarations of human rights there to pass. Anything else, folks? Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There's a race talk happening tonight at Wilson High School. Also, the request forms, we didn't cover that at the retreat, so maybe just take note of that. The request forms that ask the community what they are asking us, I guess.
We should institute those.
Yeah, we should talk about that sometime, just maybe at the exec meeting or something.
I'm usually out at meetings, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's all I'll cover tonight. Everything else I'll put in the email.
Okay. Thank you guys, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.